Good morning to all of you. In my previous lecture, I discussed the archaic in the modern. We understood how the archaic or the ancient world, the past, is present in the modern. Uh, Dipesh Chakrabarti explains it with the help of the examples from our day-to-day life. So his own examples of the lead machine being carried on the bullock cart or the push cart, then the pictures of saints and gods and goddesses together in both what you call the context of Hindus and Muslim people that he refers to. So he sees a different world in this section. Which he titles as "Seeing a Different World." He discusses the discovery of structuralism, how structuralism was very interesting field for him, and how he joined the classes of structuralism to understand it in a better manner. He visited archives and libraries for enhancing his understanding of structuralism. So he says the discovery of structuralism was quite a heady experience for us. It was really a great experience. And Guha was the first scholar to introduce structuralism and the so-called linguistic turn into Indian history. So it was Ranjit Guha who brought structuralism in Indian history. We know that structuralism was applied to literature, was applied to other fields, political science, etc. But it was Ranjit Guha who brought it to Indian history, in the study of history. Okay, but it causes many problems afterwards, he says. Although we brought it, it was a problematic experience as well. Because most historians of South Asia were unfamiliar with literature, with the literature. Means they were not familiar with structuralism. The South Asian historians. Means whatever structuralism Ranjit Guha introduced was a kind of what you call unfamiliar field for them. Now, while talking about Guha and his structuralism in the history, Indian history, Dipesh Chakrabarti notes that Guha had arrived at it via his interest in painting. It's how Guha got familiar with structuralism. He became familiar with structuralism because of his interest in painting. And here lies your answer, Tarunnu. Painting does not have any language. Painting is a kind of mute poetry. You might be knowing that. So structuralism is also applied to painting. Means as you said, no, these are Marathi and Hindi movies. How come it is applicable to that? So it is all about the things that we live around. It is applicable to everything. So he had interest, go had an interest in painting, and through the study of painting, he got acquainted with structuralism. But the problem was with the historians of South Asia. They were unfamiliar with the literature, means literature and structuralism. They were not known to Ferdinand de Saussure. They were unfamiliar to Claude Lévi-Strauss, the French anthropologist. They didn't know something about Roland Barthes' work in structuralism. So, some well known scholars mistook it for Orientalism. So, Orientalism, you might be knowing. You are very much familiar with the title now. It is the title of the work by Edward Said. But at the same time, you should know that Orientalism is the term used to refer to the scholars, Western scholars, who study the Orient. So it is Western scholarly discipline of the 18th and 19th centuries. Orientalism is the scholarly Western scholarly discipline of the 18th and 19th centuries. And this particular field encompassed the study of the languages, literatures, religions, philosophies, histories, art, and laws of Asian societies. So you might be knowing something about William Jones, who was the judge of the Supreme Court in India. He was a Sanskrit scholar, and it was William Jones who, because of his interest in Sanskrit, started studying the language, and he found interesting similarities between Sanskrit and German languages. German language, I mean to say, or some other European languages. Therefore, he came up with this Indo European family of languages. So, we all know that languages like Sanskrit, Marathi, Hindi, etc., are from that group. And this particular family of languages was introduced by the Western scholars who were interested in studying the languages, literatures of the Asian societies. So that's what we mean by Orientalists. And these scholars like Guha, Chakrabarti, Chatterjee, all of them are Bengalis, you might be knowing that. And Bengal was under the influence of Christianity and Western civil society and its ideologies. So these particular people were criticized for being Orientalists. So Orientalists means the people from Western society, scholars from Western society understood India and other Asian countries from their perspective. That's what Said says. And accuse us of recycling Orientalist themes in a post colonial garb. So they were criticized, Guha and his followers, including Chakrabarti, Dipe Chakrabarti, and others, were criticized for bringing Orientalism in post colonial India. So, this was the criticism that we need to understand. Then he shares his first hand experience of how unfamiliar some of my Marxist historian friends in Delhi were with these continental streams of thoughts. Many of the Marxist historians in Delhi who were Dipesh Chakrabarti's friends were not familiar with this continent premise. I'm talking about structuralism, etc. European streams of thought. I came straight to Delhi. He says the experience when he was in Delhi from the UK to do some more work at the National Archives of India. Now, this gives you an idea of the amount of scholarly work these people have done, and their essays, their books are based on this particular research. So he came to visit the National Archives of India in New Delhi. And during his stay at Delhi, one day he got into a scooter rickshaw. Scooter rickshaw, you might be knowing something about scooter rickshaw. It's a kind of rickshaw. Means the auto rickshaw that we travel by is a kind of scooter rickshaw only. But in Delhi and other North Indian states, there are scooter rickshaws. Means a bike or scooter is attached to a rickshaw and to pull. So he took that scooter rickshaw. He was traveling by. I shall show you the one and then we shall go ahead. You can see this is called a scooter rickshaw. These are different variants of a scooter rickshaw. Okay. So when he was traveling by this scooter rickshaw, what he noticed that he shares here to visit some reputed historian friends at one of the universities in Delhi. He was on his way to visit one of the historian. who was at the University of Delhi. On my way to, not University of Delhi, I'm sorry for that. One of the university, he does not mention the name of the university. One of the universities in Delhi. On his way to the universities in Delhi, okay, on his way to the university neighborhood, as my scooter rickshaw was making its way through the crowded, busy, and bustling thoroughfare of Chandni Chowk. So it's a very famous place in Delhi, which means literally means Moonlit Square. So Delhi is the walled city, and it was built by the Mughals. You might be knowing that in the 17th century. So he was passing through Chandni Chowk. Then time his auto rickshaw, scooter rickshaw, screeched to the halt. Means he applied the brake, sudden brake. The sound, screeching sound could be heard. Then a man on a bicycle happened to come in front of it. Okay. The scooter rickshaw driver applied brake to stop his rickshaw because the man came on a bicycle in front of it. And something happened in a minute that worked for me as almost a structuralist revelation or epiphany. So he uses the term, technical term epiphany. Epiphany in Marathi we say sakshatkar or prakatikaran, अद्भुत असे गोष्टीचं. So he actually he is unable to avoid this theological. Theological means theology is related to God and religion. So he uses this particular term. It was a kind of structuralist revelation for him. He was under the impression of structuralism and all. Therefore, he thought that it is an instance of structuralism. The man on the bicycle had a bird of prey. It was a large falcon sitting on the back of his left hand. So the man who was riding on the bicycle had a bird of prey, like might be knowing something about eagle, vulture, etc. It was a falcon. And if you have seen the poster of the Hindi movie Coolie of 1983, Amitabh Bachchan with a falcon, I've seen that, so you will remember. And even the song is there in that movie. I don't know whether you have seen that movie or not. It is a very famous movie of Amitabh Bachchan, Kuli, Sari Duniya Ka Booj Utate Hai and all. So those songs are there. Even Allah Rakha, the song is there. This Allah Rakha is the name of the falcon. I shall show you the poster of the movie so that you understand what I'm trying to say. We come across Amitabh Bachchan means it's the same picture that he's trying to share here, but this essay, this experience that he's sharing is of not 1983. It was of 1979. Therefore, you can't say that he's remembering Amitabh Bachchan or so. But if you see the picture of Amitabh Bachchan, you come to know what am I trying to say. The man was carrying the same thing. Okay, do you see this? So the name of this prey bird is Allah Rakha in this movie. The same scene could be seen by Dipesh Chakravarti while he was traveling through the Chandni Chowk. So he shares this incident, he narrates this incident. So the man was sitting, the bird was sitting on the back of his left hand, and my driver of the Jat pigeon stock. This driver belonged to the Jat community. Jat community is a dominant community in Haryana and Rajasthan. It's a pigeon community. Even as he pressed the brake, could not but help exclaim in admiration, as if driven by an invisible cultural compulsion. So the driver showed a kind of respect, admiration towards that person. Is what he said, no, as if he had seen some invisible cultural thing. It suddenly happened. He said, "Shabash, bravo, shabash." After seeing that, so let's understand the interpretation of Deepesh Chakrabarti of this incident. Right in the middle of Chandni Chowk that afternoon in 1979, the bicycle, the scooter rickshaw, the modern buildings, and everything around that was not 17th or 18th century. It was 20th century, vanished as if by magic before my eyes. Okay, so what happened? The modern buildings, everything disappeared. And I felt transported to the cultural world of Mughal India. So that was a common scenario during Mughal India. So he started seeing the 17th or 18th century, where in the middle of the city square, it would not have been surprising or unusual at all, or a pigeon worker to express admiration for the valor and manhood of a person who was able to tame the falcon, very much a royal symbol of the period. So during the Mughal Empire, Mughal India or Mughal period, it was a very common thing. And it was the matter of what we call bravery, admiration, because it showed what? The valor and manhood. So he remembered that. I suddenly felt as though I had just watched a big beat of Mughal India enacted for me. So he thought that it was a kind of drama being performed in front of his eyes of Mughal India, the period of Mughal India. Not as a piece of commercial historical reenactment, as you might find in the Red Fort or Golconda Fort today in India. Actually, these things happen on the Red Fort, Lal Killa we call it, or Golconda in Hyderabad, you might be knowing. So these are the forts, and these are the things which are enacted historical for the way Janta Raja drama uh, was performed by Baba Sahib Purandare, you might be knowing. Means he would bring the stage large enough. You might be knowing in Sangamner there is Janta Raja Maidan. So as per my memory, means I don't know exactly. I wasn't there in Sangamner the time, but this particular stage show of Baba Sahib Purandare was being performed there, Janta Raja. He would bring elephants, horses, everything, and the real stage was created. So similar kind of enactment takes place at Red Fort or Golconda, but it happened in Chandni Chowk as a part of busy, unself-conscious everyday life. He was not actually ready to believe that. It was a matter of surprise. I just seen a cultural code, all that Goa had spoken to me about in Sussex, in action. So he saw the cultural scene, the real scene. So that's what he says. This is how structuralism works. I thought. Means we understood that structuralism has got what? The underlying structure. And in structuralism, we talk about the lang and the paro, the manifestation. So we understood how the archaic is present in the modern, and this could be the instance of such thing. Structuralism works, I thought. Excitedly, the first thing I spoke to my historian friends about when I got to their place was this incident. Out of excitement, he shared this incident to his the friend whom he was visiting, or the friends whom he was visiting. but feeling rather unexcited by my narration of this revelatory experience. Means whatever Chakrabarti narrated wasn't a matter of excitement for his historian friends. They immediately sought to calm my nerves down by telling me that Foucault had gone to my head. They simply said, Foucault has entered into your head. They didn't understand the excitement that Dipesh Chakrabarti was undergoing. It was a kind of structuralism that he understood, but they simply made fun of him by calling it that Foucault had gone in his head, into his head. So what could I say? They could not see that it was not Foucault but Levi Strauss. They could not differentiate it. It was Levi Strauss who talked about culture, not Foucault. So you know Foucault as well, you studied last year. Okay, he also talks about structuralism. But the structuralism that he was trying to understand here was of Levi Strauss, who was the character here. And that Foucault was a rebellion against all that structuralist tradition. Actually, structuralism was used by Levi Strauss, and Foucault talked against, criticized this. Okay, but these people failed to understand the basic difference. That's what brought down his excitement. Okay, so Foucault was a kind of rebellion against all that structuralist tradition might have stood for. So that is how unfamiliar historians in India were with anything that happened outside the British tradition in which they had been reared. So this happens to everyone. Whatever happens outside the British tradition is unfamiliar to them. Okay, they are not familiar with the things. And then he wanted to verify, just to verify that I had not been entirely delusional in my sense of there being a cultural code at play in the event in Chandni Chowk. He says, I'm sorry. Yeah, I related the incident next day to another historian friend. So he thought that okay, those historians were unfamiliar with structuralism of Claude Lévi-Strauss. So he narrated the same to another person, a Bengali person, who was again a historian, but also someone who had grown up in Delhi. But although he was a Bengali person, he had grown up in Delhi. I stopped the story at the point where my scooter rickshaw driver had suddenly halted to notice this man with a falcon sitting on his hand and asked my friend, what do you think of my driver said when he saw this man? Shabas, what is your opinion about that? Okay, he guessed the person. After seeing this particular, he stopped there. I saw a man and my rickshaw stopped and he asked the question to his Bengali friend, what do you think? Then he replied, Shabbos. He could guess it. And I felt totally confirmed in my newfound structuralist intuition. So, whatever structuralism he had understood, it was verified, it was confirmed. That's what he says. Underlying structure, the mixture of what we call the archaic and the modern. So, through this example, Dipesh Chakrabarti is trying to explain how structuralism works. Structuralism may have been a wrong answer. Well, at least it has its own share of methodological problems. Structuralism is criticized for its methodological issues. But he says Guhad's question was right. And Guha was trying to relate it to what we call the pre-Christian era. And he think that he was right. Initially, he too was wondering how could one connect the event in 19th century to that of in the pre-Christian era. And the problem of the archaic in the modern is not just a problem for less developed countries, he says. The problem in the archaic is not a in less problem for less developed countries. Means people fail to understand, and we find in many interesting ways, even in developed nations like Australia. The same problem can be seen in Australia, a nation that often finds interesting substitutes for the medieval or the ancient past. It tells about itself. It does not have, but that is a different story. So even Australia, Messi says he notes down his observations regarding Australia. A nation, he describes Australia as a nation that often finds interesting substitutes for the medieval. They don't have medieval or the ancient past. It tells itself it does not have actually medieval or past period. But it has a different story. It does not share it. Means how medieval or past is reflected in the present. That is what he's trying to say through this example, and he thinks that this is an instance of structuralism. Means yesterday I referred to Kosambi, D.D. Kosambi, who talks about the residue and all. So residue is always there. And if you remember, who is that? Not Northrop Frye. Even Northrop Frye talks about, the Canadian anthropologist, talks about this. C.J. Jung, Carl Jung, another psychologist, who was the contemporary of Sigmund Freud, talks about a collective consciousness. So that's what we can understand here. Means it is the part of a collective consciousness, the primordial experiences, the experiences from the beginning of the man, human being on this particular earth, human race. That is a part of our memories, which are the part of a collective consciousness. Sigmund Freud talks about what we call the individual consciousness, the ego and all. So subconscious mind controls our behavior. Whereas Carl Jung talks in the context of collective psychology, not individual psychology. So we have got our primordial experiences, memories, which we cannot explain now, but they are there somewhere. So structuralism also believes in that, Yes, every apparent behavior, manifested behavior, is controlled by our underlying structures. This language that we speak has its underlying system. Okay, and Chomsky comes up with his idea of generative grammar from this particular thinking itself. He comes up with a different kind of structuralism. He talks about deep structure and surface structure. So this is how he explains his point on the archaic in the modern. The next sub-theme that we are going to understand is the subject of history or Indian history.